The sun beat down on the practice court as basketballs thumped against the polished hardwood. It was mid-June, and the WNBA season was heating up just like the summer weather. Fans packed arenas across the country, and television ratings were climbing higher than they had in years. The reason? A blonde-haired rookie from Iowa who could shoot from practically anywhere on the court. Caitlin Clark had arrived in the league with more hype than anyone could remember. After breaking scoring records in college and drawing millions of new eyes to women's basketball, she stepped into the pro ranks carrying the hopes of an entire league on her shoulders. Billboards with her face decorated city skylines. Kids wore her jersey number. Sponsors lined up with contracts worth more money than most WNBA veterans would see in their entire careers, but not everyone was thrilled about the Clark phenomenon. "Did you see that hit she took last night?" asked a reporter, holding up her phone to show a clip from the previous evening's game. The video played in slow motion. Clark driving toward the basket, then suddenly crashing to the floor as a defender's elbow caught her square in the ribs. No whistle blew. The game simply continued as Clark picked herself up, wincing but saying nothing. This wasn't an isolated incident. For weeks now, Clark had been getting knocked around during games, hard screens, aggressive double teams, and physical defense that sometimes crossed the line into something that looked personal. The rookie never complained publicly, but fans and commentators had started to notice a pattern. In Chicago, Dijonai Carrington finished her morning workout and scrolled through her social media feed. Comments about Clark filled her timeline. Some fans were calling out certain players for being too rough with the rookie. Others claimed Clark was getting special treatment from referees despite the hard hits. A few even tagged Carrington directly, asking for her thoughts since she was known as one of the league's toughest defenders. Carrington put her phone away without responding. At 26, she had worked hard to build her reputation in the league. After fighting for minutes early in her career, she had established herself as an elite defensive specialist who could shut down almost any opponent. She played with an edge that teammates loved and opponents respected. She didn't back down from anyone. "You see all this stuff about the rookie?" asked her teammate as they hit the showers. "Hard not to," Carrington replied, keeping her tone neutral. "Everybody's got something to say." "What do you think? They coming at her too hard?" Carrington took her time before answering. "I think this league has always been physical. Nobody gave any of us an easy path." But privately, even she had winced watching some of the recent highlights. There was physical play, and then there was whatever this was becoming. The line was getting blurry. Later that evening, Carrington sat on her couch with a bowl of pasta, remote in hand as she flipped through channels. She paused when she recognized Shannon Sharpe's face on the screen. The former NFL star had become one of the most popular sports analysts on television, known for his passionate takes and insider connections across all sports. "We're going to talk about something serious tonight," Shannon was saying, his usually playful expression replaced by a stern look. "What's happening with Caitlin Clark in the WNBA right now?" Carrington turned up the volume. Shannon rarely covered women's basketball on his show. This had to be something big. "My sources tell me there's more to this story than just tough basketball," he continued. "I've been making calls. I've been watching film. And I'm telling you right now, something isn't right about how this young woman is being treated on the court." The camera zoomed in on Shannon's face as he leaned forward in his chair. "Over the next few days, I'm going to share what I've learned. And folks aren't going to like it. But the truth needs to come out." Carrington felt a knot forming in her stomach. What was he talking about? What truth did he think he knew? Her phone buzzed with a text from her agent. "You watching this, Shannon?" "Sharp segment? He's implying some players are targeting Clark on purpose. This could get ugly." Another buzz, this time from a teammate. "He better not be talking about us." And another. "Who's feeding him this garbage?" Carrington didn't respond to any of them. Instead, she watched as Shannon promised his viewers that he had evidence, real evidence, that would shake up the league. He mentioned coordinated efforts and behind-the-scenes messages that would prove his point. "This isn't about tough basketball," Shannon said, pointing directly at the camera. "This is about jealousy, This is about trying to put out a bright light because it's shining too much, attention away from others. The segment ended, but Carrington's night was just beginning. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages from teammates, friends, and even a few reporters seeking comment. Everyone wanted to know what she thought of Shannon's claims. She ignored them all and instead pulled up game footage from the past few weeks. She watched every hard foul on Clark that she could find, studying them with a critical eye. Was there something she was missing? Was Shannon right? Or was this just another case of a male commentator not understanding the natural physicality of their game? As midnight approached, Carrington finally put her phone on silent and tried to sleep. But her mind kept racing. Tomorrow, Shannon would reveal more details. Names might be named. Reputations could be damaged. And somehow, Carrington had a feeling she was about to get pulled right into the middle of the biggest controversy the WNBA had seen in years. The next evening came with an electricity in the air. Sports fans across the country tuned in to Shannon's show, many of them not regular viewers but drawn by the promise of a bombshell revelation about the WNBA's biggest star. In living rooms, bars, and on phones during commutes, people waited to hear what the former NFL tight end had uncovered. Shannon sat behind his desk, more serious than his audience had ever seen him. Gone was his usual playful banter with co-hosts. Tonight was different. Yesterday, I told you I've been looking into the treatment of Caitlin Clark since she entered the WNBA, he began, his deep voice commanding attention. What I found doesn't just disappoint me as an analyst. It disappoints me as someone who loves sports. The camera zoomed in as Shannon picked up his phone. I have messages. I have videos. I have first-hand accounts from people inside locker rooms. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. And they all point to one thing: an organized effort by certain players to, in their words, humble this rookie. Shannon tapped his screen and read directly from what he claimed was a group chat between players from 3 different teams. She needs to learn this isn't college ball. Let's make sure she feels every screen. The media acts like she's already the face of the league. Let's see how that pretty face looks after a few hard fouls. He looked up from his phone, shaking his head. These aren't messages about playing tough defense or welcome to the league physical play. These are messages about targeting someone because they're getting attention these players think they deserve. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Shannon named names. 3 current WNBA players, all veterans with multiple all-star appearances, were specifically mentioned as the ringleaders of what Shannon dramatically called a conspiracy of intimidation. And I have the film to back it up, he added, as the screen behind him began playing a montage of clips showing Clark getting knocked down, elbowed, and pushed, always by one of the 3 players he'd just named, and often away from the ball where referees weren't looking. Look at this, Shannon said, freezing one frame that showed a player clearly extending her elbow toward Clark's ribs as they ran down court. No referee in sight. This isn't basketball. This is personal. In her apartment, Dijonai Carrington watched in stunned silence. One of the players Shannon had named was someone she considered a close friend. Another had been her teammate 2 seasons ago. She knew these women, had shared locker rooms with them, celebrated wins and mourned losses together. Could Shannon be right? The evidence looked damning, but it didn't match the women she thought she knew. Her phone was blowing up again. Everyone wanted her take, especially since she wasn't one of the named players but was known to be in their circle. A text from her agent flashed on screen. Don't comment publicly yet. Let's see how this plays out. Good advice, but hard to follow, as she watched Shannon continue his takedown of her colleagues. You want to know why this bothers me so much? Shannon was saying now. Because women's basketball has fought so hard for respect, for viewership, for fair pay. And along comes this generational talent bringing new fans, new sponsors, new eyes to the game. And instead of embracing what she brings to everyone's table, these players want to run her off the court. The show cut to commercial, but the damage was done. Social media erupted in real time. WNBA bullies was trending within minutes. Fans were calling for suspensions. Team owners released hasty statements promising to look into these serious allegations. And through it all, Caitlin Clark remained silent, her social media accounts showing no activity as the storm swirled around her. Carrington finally picked up her phone to text one of the named players. "You okay?" The response came quickly. "No, it's not what he's making it out to be. We need to talk." Before Carrington could reply, her phone rang. It was her team's PR director. "Dijonai, I know you're watching this Shannon Sharp thing. The press is going to come at you for comment since you're friends with some of the players he named. We need to get ahead of this." "What do you want me to say?" Carrington asked, her mind racing. "I don't even know what's true and what's not. Just the usual for now. No comment or I'm focusing on our upcoming game or whatever. But heads up. We've got media availability tomorrow morning and this is all they're going to ask about." After hanging up, Carrington tried to sort through her thoughts. Part of her was angry at Shannon for putting this out there so publicly. Why not take it to the league office first? Why make it a spectacle? But another part of her couldn't ignore what she'd seen. Those clips looked bad. Those messages, if real, were worse. She opened her group chat with several players from around the league, none of the ones Shannon had named, to find it already filled with shocked reactions. Is this for real? Those messages can't be real. My phone's blowing up with reporters. Clark's agent is supposedly threatening legal action. Carrington watched the messages flood in, but didn't add her own voice to the chaos. Instead, she switched back to the TV where Shannon's show had returned from commercial. "Now, I want to be clear about something," Shannon was saying. "This isn't about all WNBA players. Most of these women are professionals who compete hard, but fair. This is about a small group who decided a rookie needed to be put in her place. And that's not right." As the segment wound down, Shannon looked directly into the camera with a challenge. "To those players I named, you know who you are, and now the world knows too. The ball's in your court. You can deny it, you can apologize, or you can keep pretending this is just normal basketball. But the evidence speaks for itself." The show ended, but Carrington knew this story was just beginning. Tomorrow would bring denials, defenses, maybe even some confessions. The league office would have to respond. Teams would have to take sides. And she, Dijonai Carrington, would have to decide where she stood, with her friends and colleagues, or with what Shannon Sharp claimed was the truth. One thing was certain. Women's basketball was about to face a level of scrutiny it had never seen before, all because of what Shannon had just put out into the world. Dijonai Carrington couldn't sleep that night. She tossed and turned, replaying Shannon's words and the damning video clips in her mind. By 5 a.m., she gave up on sleep altogether and went for an early morning run, hoping the physical exertion would clear her head. It didn't. By the time she returned to her apartment, her phone showed 17 missed calls and over 30 unread text messages. Everyone wanted a piece of her: teammates, friends, family, even reporters who had somehow gotten her private number. She ignored them all and jumped in the shower, letting the hot water wash over her as she tried to sort through her thoughts. One of the accused players, Tasha, her former teammate, had texted her 5 times overnight. "This is being blown way out of proportion." Those messages were taken completely out of context. "We were just talking about playing physical, not hurting anyone. Please don't believe this garbage." "Call me when you can." Dijonai dried off and made herself a protein shake, still not responding to any messages. She turned on the morning sports shows only to see that Shannon's accusations dominated every channel. One show had the 3 accused players' faces side by side with Caitlin Clark's, like some kind of boxing promotion. Another was running a poll asking viewers if the players should be suspended. "This is getting out of control," she muttered to herself, switching off the TV. Her team's PR director texted again. "Media availability in 1 hour. Please be prepared for questions about the Shannon Sharp situation." That was the final straw. Something inside Dijonai snapped. Without thinking through the consequences, she grabbed her phone and opened Instagram. She hit the Go Live button and watched as viewers started pouring in, hundreds, then thousands within seconds. The comment section exploded with activity faster than she'd ever seen on any of her posts. "So I guess everyone saw Shannon Sharp's show last night," she began, her voice steady despite the anger bubbling just beneath the surface. Her face filled the screen. No makeup, hair still damp from the shower, looking directly into the camera, with an intensity that would later be described by sports journalists as electric. I wasn't going to speak on this. My agent told me not to. My team's PR people told me not to. But I can't sit here and watch people destroy the reputation of this league and these players based on some out-of-context messages and edited video clips. The viewer count kept climbing as word spread across social media that Dijonai Carrington was addressing the scandal live. 10,000 viewers, 20,000, 50,000. First of all, let me be clear about something, she continued, growing more animated with each word. This league has always been physical. Always. That's not new, that's not targeting, that's professional basketball at the highest level. She paused, gathering her thoughts, then leaned closer to the camera. You want to know the truth? The truth is that Caitlin gets the same treatment as any other rookie who comes in with hype. The truth is that we respect her game enough to play her hard. The truth is that Shannon doesn't know what he's talking about. Her voice rose with emotion as she continued, unable to contain her frustration any longer. Those messages he shared? I've seen the full conversations. They're talking about defensive strategies and playing physical basketball. Not targeting anyone for injury. Not trying to hurt anybody. Just playing tough defense against a talented offensive player. That's what we do every single night in this league. Comments flooded in, some supporting her, others attacking her. Dijonai ignored them all, focused entirely on getting her point across. And those video clips, please. Shannon showed what? 5 plays? Over how many games? Cherry-picking moments and presenting them without context. I could make a highlight reel that makes any player look like a bully if I edited it the right way. She ran her hand through her damp hair, taking a deep breath before continuing. I've been in this league for years. I know these players. They're competitors. They're professionals. They're not bullies. What they are is tired of the media acting like this league didn't exist before Caitlin Clark showed up. The viewer count hit 100,000. Unprecedented numbers for a player's personal Instagram. Live. And let me say something about Caitlin too. She's handling this like a pro. She hasn't complained. She hasn't made excuses. She's putting her head down and playing ball, adjusting to the pro game like every rookie has to do. It's everyone else. The media, the fans, people like Shannon Sharp who are making this into something it's not. Dijonai's phone buzzed with a call from her agent, which she declined without breaking her rhythm. I respect Shannon as an analyst. I do. But he got this. One wrong, dead wrong. And now he's got people attacking players who have given everything to this game, who have fought for respect and recognition for years, who have played through injuries and personal struggles while making a fraction of what male players make. Her voice cracked slightly with emotion, which only made her words more powerful. So yeah, I'm going nuts about this because somebody needs to stand up for the truth. Somebody needs to defend these players who are being painted as villains for playing the game the way it's supposed to be played. The comment section was moving so fast now that individual messages were just a blur. If Shannon wants to have a real conversation about this, I'm ready. Anytime, anywhere. Bring the messages, bring the video clips, bring it all, and I'll show you what they really mean from someone who actually plays in this league. She leaned back, suddenly aware that her 15-minute unfiltered response had drawn more attention than anything she'd ever done on the court, but she wasn't finished yet. One last thing before I go. To all the fans who are new to women's basketball because of Caitlin, welcome. We're glad you're here. But understand that this league is full of incredible players who deserve your respect. 2. Players who have been grinding for years without the spotlight. Players who are just as competitive, just as talented, just as worthy of your attention. She took a final deep breath. That's all I have to say for now. I have practice to get to, games to prepare for, a season to play. Peace. Dijonai ended the live stream and put down her phone, her hands shaking slightly from the adrenaline. She knew her agent would be furious. Her team's management would be scrambling. The league office would probably be calling within minutes. But, for the first time since Shannon's show aired, she felt a sense of relief. She had spoken her truth, defended her friends, and put her perspective out there for the world to hear. Whatever came next, at least she hadn't stayed silent. As she grabbed her gym bag and headed for the door, Her phone lit up with a text from a number she didn't recognize. "This is Shannon. We need to talk." The Sports Network studio buzzed with nervous energy. Producers huddled in corners, whispering anxiously. Makeup artists hovered near empty chairs. Camera operators adjusted their equipment with unusual care. Everyone knew today's show would be different, special, maybe even historic. "Are you sure about this format?" a producer asked the show's director. "No moderator? Just the two of them?" "That's what they both wanted," the director replied. Shannon insisted on it. Carrington agreed. Less than 48 hours had passed since Dijonai's explosive Instagram Live. In that time, her video had been viewed over 7 million times. Every sports show in the country had played clips. Her passionate defense of her colleagues and critique of Shannon's reporting had split the basketball world down the middle. And now, somehow, the network had convinced both Shannon and Dijonai to appear together on live television. In a private dressing room, Dijonai sat alone, reviewing notes on her phone. Her agent had strongly advised against this appearance. Her team's management had practically begged her to decline. But after exchanging a few texts with Shannon, she had made up her mind. This needed to happen face to face. A production assistant knocked softly. "5 minutes, Ms. Carrington." In his own dressing room, Shannon Sharp adjusted his tie and took a deep breath. He'd been in plenty of heated debates during his broadcasting career, but something about this felt different, more important. The young woman he was about to face had nothing to lose, while he had a reputation as a journalist to protect. His phone buzzed with a text from his producer. "Remember, keep it professional. This isn't about you versus her. It's about getting to the truth." Shannon nodded to himself. The truth. That's what mattered here. The red light on camera 1 lit up. The show's familiar theme music played. Then silence as the camera panned across an unusual setup. 2 chairs facing each other, no desk between them, no host to moderate. Just Shannon and Dijonai, about to have what the network was already promoting as the conversation. "Thank you for agreeing to this," Shannon began, his deep voice filling the quiet studio. "I didn't come here for pleasantries," Dijonai replied, her tone measured but firm. "I came because you made serious accusations against players I respect." "Players, I know," Shannon nodded. "Fair enough, let's get straight to it then." He turned slightly toward the camera. "For those just joining us, we're having an unmoderated conversation with WNBA player Dijonai Carrington about my recent reporting on what I believe is targeted physical play against rookie Caitlin Clark." "Targeted physical play," Dijonai repeated, making air quotes with her fingers. "That's a nice way of saying you accused my colleagues of being bullies and trying to hurt another player." "Did I use those exact words?" "You didn't have to. You showed their faces on screen. You read private messages without proper context. You created a narrative that's now following them everywhere they go." Shannon leaned forward in his chair. "So you're saying those messages weren't real? Those video clips were fake?" "I'm saying you presented them without context," Dijonai countered, matching his intensity. "Those messages were part of longer conversations about defensive strategies against a player who gets a lot of offensive touches. And those clips? 5 hard plays across how many games? That's called cherry picking." The production team had planned to go to commercial after 5 minutes, but the director whispered into his headset, "Stay with them. This is gold." "I was in those locker rooms," Dijonai continued, her voice rising slightly. "I know those players. What you're suggesting simply isn't true. Yes, this league is physical. Yes, rookies get tested. But there's no conspiracy to target anyone, especially not Caitlin Clark." Shannon raised an eyebrow. "So you're saying I manufactured this whole story? That there's nothing to it at all?" "I'm saying you took something normal, physical play in professional basketball, and turned it into a scandal because it gets ratings, because people click when Caitlin Clark's name is in the headline." For the first time, a flash of genuine anger crossed Shannon's face. "I've been doing this job for a long time, Ms. Carrington. I don't need to manufacture stories for ratings." "Then, what was the point?" Dijonai challenged. Why go public with this instead of taking it to the league office? Why name players on national television instead of letting the proper channels handle it? Because fans deserve to know. Fans deserve to know what? Dijonai interrupted. That basketball is a physical sport? That players compete hard against each other? Breaking news, Shannon. The tension in the studio was palpable. Neither was backing down. The camera operators glanced at each other, impressed by the raw emotion on display. I stand by my reporting, Shannon said firmly. I have sources. I have evidence that goes beyond what I've shown publicly. Then show it, Dijonai challenged. Right now. Show me what makes you so certain this isn't just normal basketball. Shannon paused, considering. Then he did something unexpected. He signaled to a producer who hurried over with a tablet. We're going to take a short break, he announced to the camera. When we come back, Ms. Carrington and I will continue this discussion. As soon as the red light went off, Shannon turned to Dijonai. Before we go any further, there are things you need to see. Things I didn't air because they're too damaging. The production team cleared the floor, leaving Shannon and Dijonai alone with the tablet. For the next 12 minutes, far longer than the planned commercial break, they huddled together, reviewing messages, videos, and voice recordings that Shannon had kept private. Dijonai's expression changed gradually as she scrolled through the tablet. The confidence in her face gave way to uncertainty, then to something that looked almost like dismay. This voice message, she said quietly. That's definitely Tasha. And this text chain, she looked up at Shannon. Why didn't you show this part on your show? Because it's worse than what I aired, Shannon replied, his voice softer now. I don't want to destroy careers. I just want the behavior to stop. When the red light came back on, viewers noticed an immediate change. Dijonai sat straighter in her chair, her earlier defensiveness replaced by something more reflective. Shannon's posture had softened too. We're back with WNBA player Dijonai Carrington, Shannon said, to the camera. During the break, we had a chance to review additional evidence privately. He turned to Dijonai. Would you like to share your thoughts after seeing that material? Dijonai took a deep breath. For the first time since the cameras had started, rolling, she looked uncertain about what to say next. Dijonai looked directly into the camera, aware that millions were watching, waiting for her response. The confident defender who had gone nuts on Instagram just days ago now seemed to be searching for the right words. I want to apologize, she finally said, her voice steady but quieter than before. Not for defending my colleagues, but for not seeing the whole picture. Shannon nodded slightly but remained silent, giving her space to continue. What Shannon just showed me wasn't edited clips or out-of-context messages, Dijonai admitted. There were voice recordings I couldn't deny. There were longer message threads that paint a different picture than what I understood was happening. She took a deep breath, visibly wrestling with what to say next. I still believe most players in this league compete with integrity. I still believe the physicality of the women's game is something to be respected, not criticized. But after reviewing Shannon's evidence, she paused, looking down briefly before continuing. I have to acknowledge that there were things happening that I wasn't aware of, conversations I wasn't part of, plans that crossed a line. The studio remained completely silent. Even the camera operators seemed to be holding their breath. That couldn't have been easy to say, Shannon offered, his tone softened from their earlier exchange. Especially on live television. Nothing about this is easy, Dijonai replied. These are my friends, my colleagues, people I've battled alongside for years. She straightened her shoulders. But the truth matters more than loyalty when that loyalty is misplaced. Shannon nodded appreciatively, then made his own concession. I should have been more careful about painting everyone with the same brush. Most WNBA players, including yourself, have been completely professional. This was about specific actions by specific individuals, not an indictment of the league or its players as a whole. The director, watching from the control room, whispered to his producer, "Are we sure this isn't scripted? It's almost too perfect." But there was nothing scripted about the raw emotion on Dijonai's face as she continued. "So where do we go from here?" she asked, addressing both Shannon and the audience at home. "Because this can't just be about exposing problems, it has to be about finding solutions." "That's exactly right," Shannon agreed. "And I have some thoughts on that, if you'd like to hear them." "Please." "I think we need a league-wide conversation about rookie treatment, veteran responsibility, and the unique pressures faced by high-profile newcomers like Clark," Shannon suggested. "Not a finger-pointing session, but an honest dialogue about the culture of the game." Dijonai nodded slowly. "A players-only summit to address these issues directly, without cameras, without reporters. Just honest talk among professionals who all want the same thing, for this league to grow and succeed." "That's a start," Shannon said. "And what about the players involved in what my sources revealed?" Dijonai didn't hesitate. "They need to be held accountable, but also given a chance to explain themselves and make amends. Public shaming won't solve anything. Direct conversations will." As the segment continued, something remarkable happened. What had begun as a confrontation transformed into a collaborative problem-solving session. Viewers who had tuned in expecting fireworks instead witnessed two passionate advocates for the game finding common ground. By the time the director finally cut to commercial, social media was already buzzing with a new hashtag: Grow the Game. 3 days later, Caitlin Clark finally broke her silence. At a press conference before a game, surrounded by reporters and cameras, the rookie who had been at the center of the controversy spoke with remarkable poise. "First, I want to thank both Shannon Sharp and Dijonai Carrington for bringing attention to a difficult situation," she began, reading from brief notes. "Their conversation sparked something important that needed to happen in our league." The cameras clicked rapidly as she continued. "This past week hasn't been easy for anyone. Not for me. Not for the players mentioned in Shannon's reporting. Not for the league as a whole. But sometimes difficult conversations are necessary for growth." She looked up from her notes, making eye contact with the reporters. "I came to this league expecting physical play. I came expecting to be tested, to be challenged. That's part of professional sports. What crossed the line wasn't the physical play itself, but the intent behind some of it, and that's what needed to be addressed." A reporter raised her hand. "Have you spoken directly with the players involved?" Clark nodded. "Yes, we've had private conversations that I won't detail here, but I will say they were productive and healing. We're moving forward with mutual respect." Another reporter called out, "What about the players-only summit that Carrington suggested? Will that happen?" "It already has," Clark revealed with a small smile. "Last night, every team was represented. The conversation was honest, sometimes uncomfortable, but ultimately unifying. We talked about competitive intensity versus personal targeting. We talked about handling media attention, both too much and too little. We talked about supporting each other while still competing fiercely." The press conference continued for another 20 minutes, with Clark answering questions thoughtfully but carefully, never throwing anyone under the bus, always focusing on solutions rather than problems. As the weeks passed, subtle but meaningful, changes became apparent in how players interacted on and off the court. Physical play continued. The WNBA remained as competitive as ever, but certain boundaries were more clearly respected. Veterans took rookie development more seriously, offering guidance instead of just challenges. And players from across the league began standing up for each other in interviews and on social media, presenting a more united front. Television ratings, which had spiked during the controversy, remained high. Fans who had tuned in for drama stayed for the outstanding basketball and compelling personalities. 1 month after Shannon's initial broadcast, he invited both Dijonai and Caitlin onto his show. The three sat comfortably, laughing and joking before the cameras rolled. "So," Shannon began once they were live, "it's been a month since our last conversation shook up the basketball world. How are things now, from both your perspectives?" Dijonai and Caitlin exchanged a glance, and Dijonai gestured for the rookie to go first. "Better," Clark said simply. "Not perfect, but better." The game is still physical. I still get knocked, down plenty. She smiled. But it feels different now. It feels like we're building something together, not tearing each other down. Dijonai nodded in agreement. What started as a controversy became a catalyst. We needed this conversation even if none of us wanted it at the time. Any regrets? Shannon asked, looking at both women. Only that it took so much drama to get us talking honestly, Dijonai replied. But sometimes that's what it takes. Clark leaned forward. I'd like to say something directly to the fans if that's okay. She turned toward the camera. What makes this league special isn't just one player or one team. It's the collection of incredible athletes who have been grinding for years, often without recognition. So if you came to watch me play, thank you, but stick around and watch my opponents too. They're just as deserving of your attention and respect. Shannon smiled, visibly moved by the young player's maturity. Final thoughts, Dijonai? Just that sometimes going nuts leads to something good, she said with a laugh, even when it feels crazy in the moment. As the segment ended and the camera stopped rolling, what had begun as one of the biggest controversies in WNBA history had transformed into something unexpected. A watershed moment for women's basketball, a moment when truth, however uncomfortable, led to understanding and growth for the entire sport.